Hey everybody, just a quick little disclaimer before we begin. I've decided to use the RemPy engine as it accommodates for both visual and audio output, and this means that our hard of hearing viewers and our visually impaired viewers can both get the same experience. Yeah, having said that, let's get right into it. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Kate and I am a 23-year-old quality assurance tester at a really cool company known as 24-Bit Games. I've only been doing this job since about February, so it may seem like I'm quite inexperienced, but you have my word that I am good at my job and I know what I'm doing. At least I've been told, but no one really knows what they're doing. I've been gaming since I was about 6 or 7, but only really got into it as a sort of hobby in high school, after which I went to study game design at Wits University. A lot of people don't know the degree actually exists, but it does. I studied it. I'm here now. I completed this degree last year and I kind of semi-jokingly posted on my Instagram saying I was looking for a job. I think the words were something like, I'm unemployed, I finished my degree, hire me. And one of my now colleagues actually sent me a message and said, well, my boss is actually looking for more QAs. So I went for an interview and I got the job. So that's my little story, just so you guys know me better and know how I got to where I am today. So now that you know that, let's get into the sort of nitty-gritty details of it. So for the purpose of this explanation, I'm going to use one of my favorite analogies, and that being cake. Because as Donkey in Shrek said, everybody likes cake. I would like you to please pay attention, because I'll be referring to this analogy quite frequently throughout the video. So let us first look at it like this. Our players are the royalty of the court, and the royals like to eat cake. Everyone likes to eat cake, but that's not important right now. Our game designers and our devs are the chefs and bakers who bake their cakes, and then there's us, the QAs. We're the taste testers. Our job is to ensure the eggs, or the code, are good enough and the choc chips are not cockroaches or bugs. Basically, QA is the taste testing or play testing of cakes or games to ensure it's good enough to be consumed by royals or the players, and doesn't give them salmonella or computer crashes, memory leaks, and overheated hardware. So after we've tasted the cake and we found that it's got a bunch of problems, we set out on writing bug reports. I personally love this part because it's very detail oriented and you have to pay really close attention and you have to kind of get it down to the smallest inconsistency. And I'm all about that. A bug report usually consists of the build number, which is basically the current version wherein the bug was found, because games will go through many different iterations before it reaches like the Steam shop or something like that. So it goes through different iterations, and depending on that iteration, we reference it in the bug report, sorry. Next up, we have the branch. So a lot of games with different features will sometimes have each feature being worked on a separate branch, just so that the devs working on each feature don't step over each other's feet or mess around with the other person's code. It's just easier that way and less messy. Next up, we have a summary of the issue or the bug we found, and then the repro rate, which is how often the bug was able to be recreated or reproduced. Then finally, the repro steps. Well, not finally, but the repro steps. These are very important. It's a list of the steps the developers will need to take to replicate the bug. If your repro steps are off by even a fraction, the bug may not show up, which means the game dev cannot fix it and it may get shipped with the completed game. This can be very bad because if your dev can't complete or can't recreate the bug because your instructions were not specific enough, that's kind of on you. Next up is the priority, which is how important it is to fix the bug. For example, if it makes the game unplayable or it crashes the user's computer, it's considered a high priority. If it's just something in the corner that looks like a fly, it's, I would guess, low to medium priority because it doesn't affect gameplay. Lastly is the description, which is accompanied by any media that helps illustrate the bug. This could be a screenshot or a recording or a text file of the logs or anything like that. Yes, a normal day for me consists of eating cake. God, I wish that was true. I don't mean that literally, I mean it, going to the aforementioned analogy, it means I test games pretty much every day. Some days are good and we'll only find a couple of bugs, which means, hey, the game's working pretty well. It's not doing too bad. Other days are less good. While my job is to find bugs, if there are too many bugs in a game, it means something went horribly wrong and the game is not in a very good state. Finding a few bugs is usually quite normal, but if it's to a point where there are hundreds of thousands, you know there's something wrong with the game. If the game is stable and not many bugs can be found, QAs can also handle some admin tasks which assist in the QA process. This could be anything from a detailed report on how to adequately write a bug report, which is something I did during the kind of less intense days, to a list of former issues which are specific to a game or a platform or a specific game on a specific platform, just so we can cross-check things. It's worth noting, however, that QA is not always glamorous. When I tell people what I do for a living, it's usually met with, "Whoa, you play games every day, that's so cool." And yes, it is cool. I love my job. I love the people. My colleagues are amazing. The workplace is amazing. The industry is mostly amazing. But it's not all fun and games. It can get repetitive and tedious, and simply put, it can also be quite ugly. QA is oftentimes seen as an entry-level position, and I suppose it is, but it's also one of great importance in the overall process because, as I said, it's our job to ensure the players don't die of salmonella. I'm mixing my metaphors. It's our job to ensure the royals don't die of salmonella and the players' games don't crash. Unfortunately, the way QA is viewed is very mixed. Again, on one hand, if the king is poisoned, it's on us. How could we let this happen? Did we not test well enough? How did this slip through the cracks? All of that kind of thing. But on the other hand, if the cake is beautiful, we don't get very much, if any, thanks. I mean, personally, my workplace experience is very appreciative, and the people I work with are really great in that regard. But within the overall gaming community, we're usually kind of overlooked. As I said, the way we're viewed is very warped. We're an entry-level position, but we're also the last line of defense between a broken, buggy game and a really good, polished one. Excuse me. This isn't meant to scare you off, though. I'm just saying that not everyone will understand that QA is imperative to the game design process. We are a big part of it. It's something very much looked over, but we are still important. Moving on to the skills needed for QA. The skills are very fluid. There's no checklist for how to be a good QA. There does need to be a certain level of awareness, however. You need to be aware of the things average players wouldn't consider. You need to button mash, open things you shouldn't, try open menus over menus over menus, try equip clothing you shouldn't be able to. Overall, you basically just want to be a goblin, the absolute worst version of yourself. You know that TV kid in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Mike TV? You want to be him. You want to be him, but worse. But not all the time. You also need to have patience. Not only will you be testing the same systems over and over and over and over and over again, but you'll also find that sometimes players will find a bug that slipped through the cracks. It can be really disheartening to have someone find something that you missed, even though your whole job is to find them before the players do. So you need to be patient with yourself. These things happen, and that's okay. That's why it's really helpful to have more than one QA on the job. We have 3 on our team, and our higher-ups and devs will also sometimes help, and it really helps alleviate the pressure of, oh god, I'm not doing enough, when you have kind of your whole game design family helping you. So I do think more than one QA is definitely necessary at a certain company, or any company really. Another thing I think is good for being QA, and bear with me because I know this will sound controversial and I know it'll sound like I'm going off, but you need to be sensitive. I mean, you need to be conscious of the effects a game may have on players. I know it's not my job to tell the client how their game should run, but if I see a potential problem with the game, it is my job to kind of note it down and to make mention of it before it does become a potential bug or complaint. For example, this could be a game that has very important dialogue that is imperative to the story and having no subtitles. I could say, hey, I think this needs subtitles, especially for the hard of hearing players, or hey, this scene could trigger certain players with photoepilepsy. A lot of people will disagree with me on this, but being a certain level of politically correct can actually make you better at being a QA because you consider things no one else will consider. Such as how the game would affect disabled players, queer players, players of color, and so on. Obviously, that's why I have maturity ratings, so we can kind of accommodate the game to an audience that is able to play it, but still. Personally, I want to make games that cater towards minorities because not every gamer is a neurotypical Caucasian heterosexual boy, and appealing to a larger audience as an industry I don't think is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, and I think making games with diverse characters is still seen as a risk. I want inclusivity in games to be the bare minimum. I'm kind of sidetracking, but I do think games need to evolve to a point where inclusivity isn't a risk, it's just a part of the process. Because I want everyone to be able to enjoy games where they can be their truest selves. Having said that, let's go back to the skills. I would say the skill that is most important in being a QA is versatility and adaptability. Someone who's exclusively played first-person shooters on PC for 6 years is far less likely to be considered a candidate than someone who's been playing a wide variety of games on a wide variety of platforms for maybe 1 or 2 years. So let's say you have your player who's played Candy Crush, they've played, I don't know, Dragon's Dogma, they've played Overwatch, they've played Super Smash Bros. And then you get your player who's played every single A-rated game, I don't really know what the word is, but super highly rated game on PC. The person who's played less games but on more different platforms and games that are a bit more versatile in their genre is more likely to be a good candidate for QA because they understand the systems and the way in which things should work on certain platforms and in certain genres. So yeah. My advice is to play games. Play as many as you can on all sorts of platforms and all sorts of genres. It'll broaden your horizons, and you might find that maybe enjoy something more than you thought. I personally think the gaming industry is sorely lacking in QAs, and from what I can tell, a lot of companies don't have dedicated QA departments, and testing is left to the devs, which is just added pressure to them and makes no sense to me. But that's why more QAs are needed. Even if you just start out as a QA and you move on to project management or something bigger, you've still got that experience. At the very least, it'll give you a new appreciation for the creators of games that are maybe notoriously buggy. After all, we just want everyone to enjoy the cake. Thank you for listening to my talk, and I hope you enjoyed my crude little drawings. If you have any questions, feel free to reach me on either Twitter or Instagram on my public profile. It's a great thing that my face is currently blocking this video, but I will be sure to link it. It was a pleasure being part of this, and I hope you all learned something new. Okay, bye.